All right. So my story is called "The One You'll Love Forever," and I started this one maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't that I was writing the whole time, but it just takes me a while to sort of like synthesize everything in my mind before the story kind of comes out coherently on the page. But I did want to say that the story arose out of sort of three events, I guess you could call it. So the first is that at my church, I help out with the refreshments. So I'm often in the back, like galley kitchen, plating cookies and brownies and stuff like that. And one day a woman came in and was looking for like her lost, it was like a bowl or a platter or something. And I, for whatever reason, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but I just sort of stored it in the back of my brain as just something kind of interesting. Maybe one day use it for a story. And then the second event was so I'm, middle aged. I've been married for a while, but I'm getting to that point where people are, their marriages are, people are separating and stuff. And so that's just something that has been on my mind. And in particular, a couple that I know whose marriage was going through a divorce. And then the third event was I was just paging through a magazine, and there was an ad for Le Creuset, which is famous for making those very expensive Dutch ovens. And the tagline for their ad was "The One You'll Love Forever." And I thought that was really ominous because I think I was reading it in a bridal magazine. I just found that really ominous for like people who are like looking forward to being married and the rest of their lives together, and it just I thought that was just really interesting way to put an ad. So that's where this story came about. So I'm just going to read the first bit of it for you, and then you can finish the rest through the magazine. The One You'll Love Forever. The last place Abby remembered seeing the Dutch oven was a few months ago at a potluck mixer for 20 and 30-somethings at the local Anglican church. The Dutch oven was from a premium high-end brand and very expensive. She never would have bought it for herself. She was an atrocious cook. But it had been a wedding gift, and she wanted it back. Her coworker at the time, Stella, had insisted she register for it. Stella possessed the kind of upmarket taste that Abby had yet to acquire. She and Abby would scroll wedding dresses during their lunch break, with Stella pointing out which dress she planned to wear at her own wedding, even though she was nowhere near engaged. Abby didn't particularly like her. She was a master at dodging work and blame, and Abby had no doubt Stella would throw her under the bus in a second if it served her. But they were the only two Asian people at the company, so they had naturally gravitated towards each other. Abby was 24 when she'd gotten married. She'd owned a set of mismatched dishes from her parents and a lumpy love seat she'd found on the curb after college graduation. She'd long since lost touch with Stella, whom she'd invited to the wedding, but who had not actually purchased the Dutch oven for her. The guest list had been composed of 300 people. Friends from college, childhood neighbors, members of her parents' Chinese church, and partners from Charles's law firm. But who had given her the Dutch oven? She couldn't remember anymore. At the urging of her parents, Abby showed up half-heartedly to a handful of the mixers. Her divorce had been finalized several months prior, and they were worried about her mental state. Her parents had moved from the States back to Taipei the year before, but trusted that the church could look after their daughter when they couldn't. To say they'd been deeply disappointed by the end of her marriage was an understatement. They had adored Charles. They'd called him a true believer. She was too ashamed to tell them that she'd stopped going to church after college, and that she and Charles had not actually met at a meeting for short-term missionaries, but in front of a Greek restaurant on the Lower East Side at 1 o'clock in the morning, getting shit-faced off a pilfered bottle of Malbec. "You have beautiful fingers," she told him that night. It was August and muggy, the air buzzing with mosquitoes, so hot you could smell the garbage cooking in the dumpsters out back. He held his hand up to the light and said, "No one's ever told me that before." He asked her if her parents had made her play the piano too. She said, "Are you really the kid of Chinese immigrants if you didn't?" "They used to whack me on the knuckles if I played a wrong note. They'd stand next to the bench, just waiting." Maybe that's why you're so successful now, she said. He worked 60 hours a week litigating construction malpractice claims. It sounds to me like you're validating their abuse. My parents love the idea of me, but I don't think they actually love me. I hate my job. It's boring, but I'm good at it and it pays well. They're so proud of me. He asked her what she did for work. I'm in marketing / product management / brand affinity, but honestly, I can't even explain it. It's just like beep, boop, beepity, boop into a computer all day long. Now that she was articulating it, the feelings of despair she could normally keep at bay were threatening to overwhelm her. She held out her hand and motioned for him to pass the bottle. Their fingers brushed. His were clammy with sweat. When he asked her what she wanted to do instead, she said, "That's the thing. I don't even know. I'm not sure I've had the chance to figure it out." "I get that," he said. "Do you?" She searched his face. He was still in a white button-down from the office. A pair of sunglasses dangled from his neck by a bungee cord. Everything about him was so preppy and square, it was downright kinky. He'd grown up in a white suburb like she had. He'd been a middling lacrosse player in high school, turned down Caltech for Duke, and line-dried his Vineyard Vines t-shirts. He telegraphed an ease that said he was neither one to offend nor be offended. She had only a dim awareness of who she was or what she was capable of, but still she recognized a kindred spirit, someone who was willing to trade pieces of himself to fit in with people who would never accept him, no matter how much he betrayed himself. His commitment to what she viewed as transformation, and not assimilation per se, moved her. He rubbed his thumb along her cheekbone. "I think this is what the kids call trauma bonding." She smiled at him through bleary eyes, feeling so full of raw emotion that her insides threatened to ooze out of her pores. She said, "I love you." "But we just met an hour ago." "Yeah, I'm just kidding." She took a step towards him, stumbled on the curb, and fell to her knees into the street. Abby went to the next mixer to look for a Dutch oven. The pastor who facilitated the event was named Anthony. He was pale and ghostly, with a protruding belly and skinny arms and legs. He had a closely shaved head and the kind of beard reminiscent of a monk who'd gone 3 years without salted food. At the last meeting, he'd pulled out a ukulele before the closing prayer and plucked out a song about living for the Lord even when the sun felt blunted by clouds. Every time he inhaled between measures or held a note for one breath longer than he could actually sustain, the muscles of his neck bulged and his chest bucked as if he'd been shot by a pellet gun. She didn't want to stay. She didn't want to dissect the book of Luke or pretend to care about someone's theological take on predestination. Oh God, that was the last thing she wanted to do. She just wanted her fucking Dutch oven back. Her plan was to slip in the back, scour the lost and found, check the kitchen, and get out of there. Thanks.